Akhenaten's memory is erased. The gods of Egypt take up their ancestral place again. The imperial god Amun is back at the top. The principles of Ma'at, order and justice, prevail again. The multitude of deities remains, until, in the 1st century AD, Christianity reaches Egypt, and the images of the gods become despicable idols. Under the reign of Ramses II, the priesthood regains its power, and he elevates himself and his successors. Until then, pharaohs have merely been considered godlike. They only become deities in the afterlife. This is not enough for Ramses II. He declares himself true man and true God already during his lifetime. A stele donated in honor of Ramses II shows both sides of the pharaoh. With the pharaohs now established as divine, the deities too emerge again from the darkness of the temples. Once a year, during the feast of Opet, the old imperial god Amun is again taken out of the inner sanctum on a bark. Everyone is allowed to get close to the god who, according to Egyptian beliefs, is present in his statue. The feast preempts Christian traditions, like the Catholic Corpus Christi procession. From Karnak, Amun is solemnly carried onto the temple at Luxor. Here the feast is recorded in impressive reliefs. They demonstrate that immediate relationship with the gods, previously reserved for the pharaohs, is now granted to everyone. Thus, in the time after Akhenaten, an individual intimate piety develops. Yet, like all humans, the ancient Egyptians must face a fact. Their lives are finite, and given a life expectancy of 40 to 50 years, much shorter than today. Yet what awaits them once they have died? They embark on the journey to the beautiful West. To the ancient Egyptians, the realm of the dead lies where the sun sets. So their tombs usually point to the West. They cherished the idea of living on after death, alongside the gods in the Egyptian paradise. However, they seem to have considered life on the Nile as being not too bad. They want to continue it in the hereafter, as is shown by their magnificent tombs. Initially, eternal life is reserved for queens, kings, and high officials. But then, the door to the afterlife is open to the common people too. Even ordinary Egyptians, like the stonemason Nakhtaman, now meet the gods in the afterlife. On their journey to the West, they take along not only provisions, but all kinds of things beautiful or of potential use in the hereafter. Like Pharaoh Tutankhamun. True, afterlife may have been democratized.
This is an Egypt that's becoming more suspicious, more fearful, and more aware of the threats to their world, natural disasters, political breakdown, and foreign powers. And this little wax figurine is a means to control anyone that threatens the balanced order of Egyptian life. Welcome to the Age of Fear. A time when every element of Egypt's worldview was in doubt. Their faith in their king, in their land, and even in their gods had all faltered. This is one of the lowest points in Egypt's long story, and its effect reverberated throughout the Nile Valley. The king traditionally based in the north, was no longer the source of wealth, so royal officials abandoned court and relocated back to their hometowns throughout the country. Disunited, Egypt reverted back to how it had been 1,000 years earlier, breaking up into a series of local regions called nomes. And now a new kind of leader emerges to dominate the Dark Ages. No longer a single king, but multiple warlords. And we know much about one of them because he left his detailed autobiography in his rock-cut tomb at Moala, well away from the usual tourist sites.
Lastly, the mausoleum of the 5th dynasty's last monarch, Unas, contained the first pyramid texts, detailed drawings and writings inside the tomb that cast light on the religious views of the period. During the Old Kingdom of Egypt, the elite standardized art, and figures were produced uniformly to reflect the tastes of Memphis, the capital. Although other art forms such as painting and literature exhibit more skill in the Old Kingdom, statues from the late early dynastic and early Old Kingdom periods are very comparable. The Old Kingdom's most famous works of art are the Pyramids of Giza and the Great Sphinx of Giza, both of which remain today. Although smaller structures were crafted with the same precision and beauty, in reality, Egyptians placed great importance on Old Kingdom art and architecture in later ages.
But not everyone can take along riches on that scale. The Egyptians called the paradise Iaru, the rush field, quite like the reed fields on the banks of the Nile. It's a world without worries, where you may cultivate your field, hunt geese, fish, or simply relax. There's no lack of anything, be it cake or beer. Access is granted only to him whose soul is lighter than the feather of Ma'at at the judgment of the dead. Eternal life to anyone who passes the trials of the heart, a most comforting promise. But why only think about the end? Follow the beautiful day. Let not thy heart be weary in drinking and eating, in intoxication and lust. Forget about death. Follow the heart.
The ancient Egyptians were really amongst the leaders in the ancient world at thinking that life didn't end at death. In fact, life continued on, and in a better way. So you had the Greeks who didn't have this, you had even the people in Mesopotamia who didn't quite have it the same way. But the Egyptians really had a well thought out idea of, there's this life, you die. If you have done a good life, lived a good life, you would continue for eternity. And this was something that was then later on clearly has influenced the great monotheistic religions, because you see it, of course, most clearly in Christianity and as well as in Islam.
Ancient Egypt and its culture exert a great fascination. Even foreign conquerors put on the double crown of the pharaohs and worshipped the deities of Egypt. The system of administration, which has been tried and tested for thousands of years, makes it easy for them to seize power. The persistence of ancient Egypt, even under foreign rulers, is particularly evident at the temple of Edfu, south of Luxor. It wasn't completed until 70 BC, when the country was ruled by the Macedonian Greek dynasty of the Ptolemies. The complex is based on Egyptian temples some 1,500 years older, including scenes of gods and pharaohs. To Greeks and Romans, any foreigner was a barbarian. Not so in Egypt. Even foreign rulers are accepted if they respect Egyptian beliefs. Thus, images of the gods and the temples of the Egyptians are not destroyed by the Greeks or the Romans. They embrace their culture and opt for conciliation. Amun is simply equated with Zeus, the Greeks' father of the gods. Isis becomes the Roman goddess of love, Venus, with her dress raised. new multicultural metropolises emerge, such as Alexandria, founded by the Macedonian conqueror Alexander the Great. He has a temple built for a new Hellenistic Egyptian god, Serapis, who combines characteristics of both pantheons.
Egyptian religious beliefs changed over time, but certain deities maintained their power right from the beginning, all the way, in fact, into the Roman period, and were even taken abroad by the Romans as far away as Britain.
As early as 5,000 years ago, a centralized state is established in ancient Egypt, with a single ruler at its head. Society is held together by the belief in a divine order and life after death. For 3,000 years, godlike pharaohs rule autocratically and unchallenged over the empire on the Nile, a legacy that has left its mark to this day.
Europe took over the ancient Egyptian way of rule, which means starting with the hereditary monarchy of Emperor Augustus, it became a way of succession of the rule that was legitimized by the divine right of the emperor and of the king. Until today, there are constitutional variants of this hereditary monarchy.
There were, of course, many other areas that have been explored by the ancient Egyptians, inventions that have been made, but from their basic norms, such as the Ma'at system, certain ideas were carried over into the present day and into our concepts of being.
Ancient Egypt leaves behind much more than magnificent temples and impressive pyramids. Some inventions and ideas have remained cornerstones of state and society until today. In the realm of the pharaohs, some of mankind's oldest and largest cities are being built. An urban revolution that has long been overlooked. For unlike the impressive stone temples, most traces of settlement have disappeared today. Yet researchers are gaining ever deeper insights into the urban life and residential culture of the ancient Egyptians.
His name was Ankh-Tifi. Now Ankh-Tifi is a small-time official who's worked his way up through the ranks to become the regional governor, or nomarch as it's known. And in the decline in central government, the power vacuum that opens up is now filled by the Ankh-Tifis of this world. Ankh-Tifi's tomb is quite modest by ancient Egyptian standards, but its interior walls tell of his rise to power. And Egyptologist Gary Shaw is going to help me unravel Ankh-Tifi's story.
You can see the man himself.
Ah, the great man.
The great man carved, standing there.
He's got a great hairstyle.
He does.
That is lovely. I'm liking him already.
Yeah, the man himself, he has a great tomb as well.
The hieroglyphs and images that fill the walls reveal how Ankh-Tifi exploited the power vacuum at the end of the Pyramid Age, reducing the king to nothing more than a footnote.
The only time you see the name of a king in the entire tomb is right here. This tiny little cartouche.
Oh, it couldn't be any smaller. Look at the size of that.
This is Neferkare, and that's it.
Is that it in the old tomb?
The old tomb, the one mention of a king. And just, I think that really emphasises just how important he thought he was alone. He didn't need to mention the pharaoh. He didn't need to say that the king told me to do this, so I did this because of the king's favours. He just did it himself.
That is extraordinary. I think that cartouche alone of everything in the tomb encapsulates this whole period. Kings have been reduced to something on a minuscule level, and the local rulers are shown on a huge scale, and it's all about them, isn't it?
From Memphis and Thebes on the Nile to Alexandria on the Mediterranean, this is the story of Egypt's metropolises.